Hello everyone, and welcome back to our training videos on ProPresenter 7. Today's video will be about the presentation editor. To get to the presentation editor, all you have to do is click on the edit button at the top bar, or you can use your keyboard shortcut of Control E. Once you're in the presentation editor view, you can now see all the things that you're allowed to edit. Let's start in the left column. Over here you can see what presentation you are currently editing. You can also add a slide to your presentation. So if we click this, we can add a new slide with the current theme of the presentation, or we can add a slide with a different theme or a new theme. We can go ahead and add a message themed slide. Then in here, you can see all the slides within your presentation. And if you have them grouped, you can hide them in their groups with this arrow right here next to group, and then reveal them again. You can right click on a slide. You could change its theme. You could do your normal copy, paste, delete, duplicate, or you could copy the text style of that slide and paste that to another slide. Then down here you have your objects bin. Your objects bin shows you all the different objects you have on a slide and the order that they're in. The farther up on the list they are, the closer to the front. The farther down the list they are, the closer they are to the back. You can rearrange that order by just grabbing them and dropping them into a new location. You can also right-click on them to rename them, to hide, to lock, and to delete. When you have one selected or hovering over it, you can choose to hide it or reveal it, or you can lock it and unlock it. Then I'm going to jump over to the right column. So if you have no objects selected and you only have a slide selected, you get 3 tabs. The first tab is called Presentation. In this tab, you can change the background of the entire presentation by enabling it and choosing the color that you want. Now every slide in this presentation will have that background. You could resize all the slides of your presentation. You could add a transition to all the slides of your presentation. This is how it transitions away from the slide. Or you can add all the copyright information if this were to be a song and choose to display it via the Preferences tab or in another format. The next tab is called the Slide tab. In here you can enable or disable an individual slide that you have selected. You could add a hotkey, like if I were to put in the letter A, then back in the show view, if I were to press A, it would bring that slide up and make it go live. But we don't really use that, so I'm going to go ahead and delete it. You could add a label or delete a label. You could add a specific background to this one specific slide. So if I wanted this one slide to be a color, then I could look over here and notice that only this one slide is green. And then you could add a chord chart. You would choose your chord chart that you have on your computer. Then when you clicked on this slide, if you had chord charts enabled on your stage display, you would see that chord chart on that specific stage display. The next tab is called Build. This allows you to add a transition or change to a different transition for building the slide. So when you click on the slide, this is the transition that you'd see for this specific slide. Now, if we come back in here, I'll show you how to add an object to a slide. So if you were to click this plus button, you can now add a text box. You could add shapes. And let me show you a few of those shapes and a few new features on them. We have rounded rectangles, and we can choose how round our corners are. We have polygons. We can choose how many sides there are to our polygon. We have stars, and we can choose the radius of our star and how many points our star has. And we have arrows. And within the arrow, we can decide the shape and size of our arrow. You can also create a custom shape by just drawing points. And if you hold and move, you can create some curved points. Then when you click back to the first point, your shape is created. Next we have media. So if we click media, it'll open a finder, and we can pick an image or a video, and we can import that. And now this media is not a foreground or a background, but it's an object on the slide. But I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Finally, we have video input and web. If we pick either of these, it'll create a text box with yellow lines through it. This just means that we're going to fill this box with something other than text. We're going to fill it with media or video input. So I'll go ahead and delete that. Then I want to talk about the bottom bar. So on the bottom bar, you see the X and Y axis of where the cursor is. So the X axis or the Y axis. If you select an object, you see the width and the height of that object, and those are all in pixels. You can choose to look at a transparent background as a checkerboard or as gray. You have guidelines. These guidelines have 3 styles: slide specific, template specific, and alignment guides. So slide specific, if we were to enable our ruler, we can click on the top of the ruler and pull down and get a guideline, or we can click on the side of the ruler and pull out and get a guideline. If we were to look at this template slide that we added earlier, we'll notice it has green lines because this template, or this theme has a guideline on it already, so it comes up as green when we look at it. And finally, if you move an object around, you'll see a yellow line that's guiding you to the edges, middle, or the same distance as other objects, or the slide itself. So you can find the center of the slide, you can find the edge of the slide. This allows you to organize your objects on your slide in a nice manner. Then we can also delete these guidelines by either grabbing them and pulling them off the screen, or we can right click and delete the guideline. If you click in the gray, you have the ability to copy those guidelines and then paste them onto another slide, since those red ones are slide specific. Then we also have the ability to add a grid. We can choose its color, its spacing, and how many subdivisions. And then you just click this to disable it. And then we can also zoom in and out or fit our slide to the exact size of our window. Next, if you were to right click on a slide, if you right click on an object, it'll tell you what the object is. You can cut, copy, paste, duplicate, delete. You could copy styles and paste styles. You could bring it front or back. You could align it. You could distribute it. You could add text to an object. You can make it editable. You could hide or lock it. Let's make it editable. What this allows you to do, like a custom shape, you can now create a custom shape from a shape that you started with. When you click out of it, now you have a new shape. Now let's look at the right column and the 3 tabs when we have an object selected. So the first tab is called Shape. At the top, you have all your alignment choices for your shape. You can reposition it, you can resize it, you can transform it by flipping it horizontally, flipping it vertically, or rotating it. You can change the opacity of your shape. Then you can fill your shape. You could fill it with a color. You could fill it with a gradient. Pick your 2 colors and your angle. You could fill it with media, whether that's video or a picture. You could fill it with web. And a good reminder here is that this is a web browser built into the software, so it can't handle too much of a complex website. So it would be something you want to keep simple. You could add a video input, or you could add a slide object. Then you can add a stroke, which is also known as a border. You could choose its style, width, and color. You could add a shadow to the object. So this would be adding the shadow to the text box. You can feather the object. It'd be feathering your edges. And then you also have this new feature called visibility. This allows you to decide when this object is displayed based off of certain conditions and parameters. So you can choose your condition style. Then you can choose where it's looking for those conditions. So we'll choose a timer, and then you can choose the parameters of that. Has the timer expired? Is it currently running? Is it not running? You can add multiple conditions and formats to decide when this object will be displayed or not displayed. So we'll go ahead and turn that off. The next tab is called text. In text, you can copy a style and paste the style, your typical formatting of your font, all your different options, your left, center, and right alignment, justify, and where it sits in the text box, whether it's top, middle, or bottom. You also have this new drop-down menu that allows you to fit the container to the text, to scale the text up to a container, scale the text down to a container, or scale the text up and down to a container. You can add a stroke or border around your text. You can add a shadow specifically to your text. Then we have this new feature called lines only. When you click this, it only shows the fill for the line where you have text. So let's add some text to this text box. We'll just say test 1, 2. Now we only see the fill where there is text. We can offset that fill in a positive or negative direction. As we go negative, you can see separation between the lines. And then you can change the baseline offset as well. Where does that background sit in accordance with the text? Next we have list. So if you just click list, you would create a list of your one line. But we're going to go ahead and delete those. And instead we're going to highlight the whole group and then click list. Now each one is a part of the list. We can change what character we use to make our list, whether it's a special character, a number, a letter, or Roman numeral. We can change its size, its color, its indent, and text size. And I'm going to jump ahead to the Build tab, because once you have a list, in Build tab, you can choose to deliver your list by bullet or by underline. What this allows you to do is pick a transition for in and out, and then reveal each bullet point as you choose, whether that be per click or after a transition, and what delays you would have on those reveals. Then we'll go back to the text tab, and we'll click on linked text. In linked text, we can now link another text box to this text to see different formatting of that box. We could link a timer. So if we link a timer, we then have the ability, I'm going to go ahead and turn off list for a second here. So if we link a timer, then what happens is that timer is now displayed in this text box. So whenever we start the timer, then it will display in there. We can change the format of this timer. So when you click this drop-down menu, the first H allows you to always show the hour, but hide a leading 0. HH allows you to show the hours and show the leading 0. H with a line through it means that you can show the hour when there is an hour, but never show a leading 0. And HH with a line through it means that you can show the hour, but never, but also show the leading 0. And then when there is no hour, then you won't show the zeros. And finally, you can do just the line, which means never show hours. So if I were to click that, it would take my hours and turn them into minutes. And you can do this for your minutes, your seconds, and your tenths and hundredths of a second as well. You can also add text into this box to maybe say service starts in and then the timer. Finally, you can add triggers. Triggers allow you to change the color of the font at a specific time. And you can add multiple triggers to that and change specific colors. Next, you could have a system clock. This allows you to add a date at your specific format. the time, how you want to display it, whether it's 24-hour or not, and then again, you can add text into that as well. You could add ticker. This is like the rolling information at the bottom of a news channel when you're watching. You can choose the scroll speed, whether it's looping, the delay of the loop, how many lines, and then the source, whether it's RSS feed, text, or file. Finally, you could choose to display the video countdown. So if there's a video on this slide, whether a foreground, background, or slide object, you can now display the countdown of how much time is left on that video into your text box. And you have the same conditions as in your countdown timers with formatting and color triggers. Finally, I want to mention down here that there's a button called Slide Notes. If you click that, it will reveal a box where you can add text. You can change your font, the style of your font, all your typical conditioning formats. And then you can also add a color background to it. This is something we don't use often, but it's nice to know that it's there. And finally, I want to show you the Show button. This button allows you to display the current slide you're editing on whatever screen or output it is set to. So if you wanted to see what it looked like up on the big screen, you just click that and it will show it for you. So this is Presentation Editor. And there's one more thing I want to show you. If you were to pick a specific presentation, whether you were in the show view or the edit view, or I believe in a specific slide, you can click Adjust Slides Text Style. So you could do this for a whole presentation or a specific slide. You could change all your font parameters for that in a quick, easy way without ever having to even go into the editor. So I want to thank you for watching. I hope you're learning with us. And remember, if you have any questions, continue to write them down and we'll answer those when we do an in-person training.